Would you have any, stories from one of your patients who had a really, really tough traumatic event that happened to them, or, some difficult situation they were in their life and they were able to completely overturn that with ART?
Gosh, I have so many. It can honestly be hard to choose.
Oh, yeah. But one that maybe impacted you and you were like,
Yeah, well,
wow.
this one impacted me very recently.
Yeah.
I had a woman in her 50s, and she was coming in because she said, I want to work on my mother wound. And when I digged a little deeper, her mother had exposed her repeatedly during her childhood to men who sexually assaulted her over and over and over again. And when she went to her mother called her a liar. Okay, so we can imagine the impact this has had on this woman throughout her life. Very sad. I tend to find this one of the most tragic kind of things to listen to when mothers do not believe their daughters. I think because I am a mother and I have two daughters, this literally breaks my heart. But she was ready to sort of deal with it. So she basically kind of used that to go on. And we worked that through. She had terrible sensations in the beginning, feeling like she was choking, heart rate, nauseated, neck pain, face flushed, you name it. And throughout the session, she just, got better and better. And by the end of the session, she had no access to those images anymore, and had basically created a scene where she figured out who needed to come and help her and what she needed to do to be safe, and create a different ending to that. And what was so that would have been good enough, okay, that she had completely erased that. Her entire body felt relaxed, peaceful, joyful. That would have been enough. That's 100% of a success. This woman had also had cancer a few years prior, and because of where the cancer was located, she had not been able to open her jaw very much, and she'd actually lost feeling in her face, on one side of her face. While we are healing this mother wound, this terrible history of childhood sexual abuse, she could open her jaw and move it around with ease, and all of the feeling came back in her face.
Really
Interesting. Wow.
During this, by the end of the session, and she was, just absolutely floored. She, she was ecstatic. And then I touched base with her about a week later, and she even added to how well things were going. She said that she had been running hot for years and always thought it was menopause. Right. She said, I need, multiple fans on me at all time. I have an elevated temperature, literally an elevated temperature. She said, my body has completely cooled off and I don't need any of that anymore.
That's amazing.
Wow. So like her body was literally inflamed from
literally
trauma.
Inflamed with rage and hurt and cancer. And so I really think that the messaging is just so important, that our bodies do keep the score. They do hold on to trauma. And I'm not suggesting that she should be that, this childhood sexual abuse caused her cancer. I don't know, but there's a relationship between them.
Yeah.
And I think that is the most exciting thing in the world. And if I can help people with, chronic pain or other things by healing emotional wounds, how amazing is that?
Yeah.
That is amazing.
There is a relationship between stress and, chronic disease, right? I mean, a lot of times stress is disregarded as part of one of the major causes of disease in the world. So I think, yeah, if that person was able to find peace by doing art, and it's possible, I think maybe that her cancer was a result from all that trauma, and over time it did accumulate and cause her that physical ailment. Do you think it's possible for art to also address physical issues? I know it's, we're focusing more on the mental health here, but do you think there's an avenue for physical health being improved?
Oh, I know. I worked with a woman who had an injury to her toe 2 years prior and had daily pain in her big toe. And she came in, and I was seeing her for a few different things. And we ended up doing actually art on about 5 different, maybe more now, 6 different issues. She's healed from all of them. But this one, we did one 60-minute session on what happened when she hurt her toe, and she never had one moment of pain after that. I mean, leaving the office, not one moment of pain, and that was, I think, 10 months ago now, 9 months ago. Not one moment. Gone.
Wow.
So is that because you think maybe the brain is not letting go of how the injury happened? Like, why is it that, this rapid eye movement, procedure is helping the toe feel better?
So, the physical pain, I'm not as much of an expert on in how that works. I think people who study pain would probably have a better idea. But what I would say is the way that happened had become a trauma for her because she was sort of living with the impact of it. And so I think once she let go of the images and then, of course, saw herself in the future dancing and running around and, running a marathon, that's what's got stored in the brain. And so, it's like the pain just sort of disappears because you don't believe you believe you're better.
Power of Belief.
Yeah, there's a good book on that, Biology of Belief.
By Bruce Lipton, if you've ever read about that. But I also want to bring up another author who also talks about chronic stress that we both read his book, Gabor Mate. Have you ever heard of him?
Of course, yeah.
He's a Canadian, doctor, and I found his book to be very fascinating. Years back when I read it, he talks about, chronic stress. I don't know if that kind of also falls into the traumas that you accumulate.
Oh, I think so. And again, as you said, it's sort of the buildup in your body and where you store it, right? So, I think it can be really important to sort of look at, like, what is injured and what might that symbolize? And, it's very common that we see women who've been sexually abused having pelvic floor dysfunction or sexual dysfunction. That's not a coincidence, right? So I think the body does also store trauma in areas where, the trauma occurred or the sort of meaning, behind it. So I think that's important to look at too.
Kind of to relate to, the issue that you have with your Crohn's disease, how maybe...
Yeah, I mean, I suffer from Crohn's disease, and, it did really start with the onset of stress. I was in a hard job, and, it was weird because I had never had any Crohn's symptoms before that. But then when I got into a really stressful job and a lot of things happened there, then all of a sudden it started. So I think possibly or most likely stress was probably the trigger there.
Yeah, and this is, with chronic illness, a lot of this is, sometimes people just are moving on with their lives perfectly, well, and then something causes that first flare up. And then, the disease sort of, it is sort of then just a part of you. But usually the timing is related to something. On some level.
Yeah. So maybe I should give it a try, art therapy for my Crohn's.
Absolutely. I mean,
who knows?
Well, I mean, now that
Absolutely.
you're not in that specific job anymore, you've seen how your health
Exactly,
has
yeah.
'cause
So
it
as soon
has
as
improved.
as soon as I left the job, my symptoms already started improving. So that's already, a telltale sign.